This episode contains mature content.
Did you know that Jesus Calling has its own YouTube channel? It's full of great content that will enhance your spiritual life. You'll find beautiful videos with short devotional moments to help you through your day, as well as stories on video from celebrities, authors, pastors, and everyday people who share what their faith journey has meant to them. You'll also find the Jesus Listens Stories of Prayer series hosted by Susie McIntyre Eaton, featuring new guests monthly. Subscribe today for new videos each week.
And I honestly believe that resilience is in absolutely everyone. Everyone has it. And if you can channel your feelings, if you can talk to God, if you can find the strength you need, you can get through absolutely anything.
Welcome to the Jesus Calling podcast. This week we'll hear from seasoned journalist Benjamin Hall, who has spent much of his career reporting from some of the world's most dangerous conflict zones. In 2022, while covering the war in Ukraine, he was gravely injured in an attack that killed 2 of his colleagues. Today, he shares how that harrowing experience challenged his limits and instilled in him the unshakable belief that we all have the strength to overcome, no matter what we face. Later in the episode, we'll hear from author and life coach Chris Janssen as she shares her firsthand experience with alcoholism and the path to recovery. Now, through her journey of sobriety, Chris uses the lessons learned from her lowest moments to help others rise to new heights. Let's begin with Benjamin Hall.
I'm Benjamin Hall, and I've been a war correspondent for my whole career. Covered conflicts around the world, from Afghanistan, Syria, Somalia, Iraq, Libya, and many others. I was born in London, in the UK. My mother was English and my father was American. My parents were very different from one another. My mother was really very creative. She loved to travel the world. She loved to try and meet people who she would otherwise never normally have met. And we grew up going to places like Brazil and fishing on the Amazon, or tenting in Africa, or staying with tribes in Venezuela. And I think from her, I learnt the excitement of meeting new people, traveling to new places and discovering the world in general. My father, on the other hand, was more serious. He was very rational. He was a businessman. And his own experiences as a child really affected who I was as well. He was born in the Philippines during World War II, and he was in a Japanese prison camp for a while from the ages of 8 years old. His mother, his aunts, his grandparents were killed. And at the end of the war, when the American soldiers came back in to liberate the country, my father, who was 12 years old at the time, was living on the streets, and he rushed through the war with his siblings to find the American soldiers, because he had told, if you want to stay alive, find the Americans, they will save you. And he did. I grew up with this story that my father always told me about how he finally found the American front line. He ran towards the soldiers, and this GI from the Ohio National Guard picked him up, pulled him behind a tank, and said, "We got you now, we got you." And my father moved to the US, and he went to college. Then he enlisted and he served in the US Army in Korea. And from the day that he was saved by an American soldier on the streets of Korea, he was just the proudest American out there. And I was raised with his idea that we must always be out there trying to save others, trying to do what we can. And you must always look at the good and you must look at the bad, and you must learn from both of them. Three years ago, we were covering the war in Ukraine at the beginning of the conflict. It was March 14th, and the Russians were surrounding the capital city of Kyiv. We'd finished filming. We were driving back towards Kyiv in our car. It was me, our cameraman Pierre, our local fixer called Sasha, 21 years old, and 2 Ukrainian soldiers who were driving us in a civilian car. We came up to this abandoned checkpoint, and as the car slowed down to turn around this checkpoint, phew, our team was hit by Russian artillery. The first one landed about 30 feet in front of us. We quickly tried to reverse the car, and a few seconds later, the second one landed just alongside the car. And And that one blacked me out. I got shrapnel in my eye at that point and some head injuries. And I went into this place of total dark, total peace, total quiet, almost like another world. And it was into this moment, into this totally black place that I saw right in front of me. My 7-year-old daughter, Honor, spoke to me and she said, "You've got to get out of the car. You've got to get out of the car. You've got to get out of the car." And she brought me back. And I came back and my eyes opened and suddenly everything around me was chaotic and there were some flames, and I grabbed for the side door of the car and I took one step out of the car and the third shell hit the car itself. I was thrown away and I was unconscious for a little bit, and when I woke up I was on fire. My right leg was largely missing, injuries from head to toe. I had started rolling around to try and put the flames out. And then finally I sat there and was in and out of consciousness for a bit. And our cameraman, Pierre, was a little bit ahead of me. He had gotten out of the car and he just said, "Russian drones, don't move, Russian drones." So we lay there for a bit and I'm trying to figure out, if I'm going to survive. And first of all, I thought about my family. And I told myself that no matter what, I'm going to find a way to get back to them. And then the next thing I thought about after that was the prayer to God. And I said, "God, please somehow get me home again." And the next 40 minutes or so, I lay there. No one knew exactly where we were. Pierre passed away while I was there. The other 3 died in the car. And after a long wait, Ukrainian special forces drove past, but they didn't see me. I was waving at them, screaming at them, and they still didn't see me. And amazingly, that one car, in miles perhaps, had engine problems just down the road, and it turned around and it came right back up. And by that point I was higher up and I had a handful of rocks and I threw them up at this car and they saw me. And at that point they pulled me into the car. It was at that very moment that I felt all the pain. With the adrenaline and everything else while I was lying there, I hadn't felt the pain, but the moment I was saved, that was the moment that the pain all kicked in. I remember when I woke up lying in this hospital bed, and I assumed I had been taken by the Russians. So I was trying to think, all right, how do I escape from this hospital? Fox News had learned that our team had been hit. They knew one person survived. They didn't know who. And they hired this incredible group called Save Our Allies, American veterans who were nearby in Poland, to come into Ukraine to come and try and find me. And they finally found the hospital I was in, and they managed to evacuate me. I had a big piece of shrapnel in my neck that they couldn't remove. So they couldn't drive me out because they were worried about how bad the roads were. They couldn't fly me out because of surface-to-air missiles. But then amazingly, it turned out that the Polish Prime Minister was on the first ever secret visit since the war began. And if we could get through the curfew and break through at nighttime, then the Prime Minister would evacuate me on his train. And so began this incredible journey where we went checkpoint to checkpoint. Ukrainians actually thought that we were Russians coming in and that we were breaking the curfew, and they would open up my wounds and they would guns at the head as we were trying to get our way through Kyiv to try and get to the Prime Minister on time. Then just as minutes to spare before the train left, we managed to get there and he put me onto this train. And then began this 10-hour train ride to Poland, which was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life because they had no pain meds for me. And I just lay there for 10 hours and I had to find another level of strength inside me to make the pain stop. And I also learned on that train journey that Pierre and Sasha had been killed. And so, I had to deal with those feelings as well. Honestly, it was during that train ride that I learned how much your mind can influence how you are feeling and how you can find another level of strength when you have to. And every time the pain was becoming too much to bear, every time I thought I couldn't handle it, I would tell myself, you've got to find another level. You've got to be strong. You've got to put this behind you. You've got to just keep focusing on staying alive, trying to get home to your family. And since then, so many people helped me when I was injured. I spoke to veterans who had been injured, and they would come to my bedside and they would say, "Don't you worry, you will be up and you will be walking. You're going to be fine." And they really inspired me. And if I can pass on a little bit of that inspiration to other people who might be going through something, then that's what I want to do. And I do think that I must now live for those who died that day, and that I must challenge what I do for them. So however they would have lived their lives, the good that Pierre and Sasha would have done, I want to go and try and do that myself. So I do think about it a lot, but I make it drive me to be better, make it drive me to go in things that I think would inspire them, would make them happy. I honestly think that through everything I've been through, I am a stronger person because of it. I now know that there isn't a challenge you can throw my way that I won't find a way through. Yes, you mustn't let fear disable you. You've both got to address it, but also not run from it. I think that the worst thing you can do is hide from them, run from them, pretend they didn't happen. You got to look straight at them and you got to say, "I'm going to get through you." A year and a half later, on my prosthetic legs, I took the same train and I lay down in the same way when I went back, and I wanted to relive all those memories because I don't want to forget them. They are who I am. They are something that define me. Everyone has difficulties, whether they're financial problems, whether it's family problems, whether it's anxiety. All these things exist, and I think that if you look at them in the same way, you can find ways through them. And I honestly believe that that resilience is in absolutely everyone. We are survival machines, humans. And if you can channel your feelings, if you can talk to God, if you can find the strength you need, you can get through absolutely anything. But everyone has resilience. I suppose what's difficult is learning how to really use it. It's about learning how to activate your mind so that you can focus on what you get through. That, I suppose, is why I wrote my book, Resolute. It's to try and talk through how I managed to get through what might seem like some of the hardest times of one's life, but I did so always with optimism. I was always hopeful. I was always smiling. I always managed to find the beauty in every day while acknowledging the loss. And I think that's something that is so important for people to learn. How to balance those two things in your life and not let the loss overwhelm you, but how to let the positive really guide you. I was raised a strict Catholic, and for much of my life, that's what defined every decision I made. And then I was covering conflict, and I think many people's religion sometimes goes on journeys, and there are times when I questioned religion. I stopped going to church for a little bit, and I remember just started to think that maybe religion isn't the best solution. And I remember going to this beautiful church in northwestern Iraq, which had been totally bombed and fallen apart. All that was left was this altar with this crucifix on it, and it was one of those moments that my religion just came flying back to me again. And it just stood there, this crucifix in the middle of this war zone where everyone was trying to destroy it and obliterate it, but it stood strong. It was one of those moments that I started to rebuild my religion. But then, after the attack in Ukraine, I suppose I had some questions as well for God. I was thinking, how can God allow this to happen? I started speaking to one of the chaplains at the Brook Army Medical Center, and we had a lot of discussions about what role religion can play and how you have two options. One is to run from it, and the other is just to embrace it and to understand that everyone's journey is different and try and find the positives in it and try and talk to God through it. And Psalm 23, there are the lines in it that say, "Yea, though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy staff and thy rod, they comfort me." And I almost felt that, I had been walking in the valley of the shadow of death, and yet I came out of it stronger. And I think back to those lines all the time when I'm having difficult moments, and that just inspires me. I'll be reading an excerpt from Jesus Listens, April 20th. Almighty God, your word tells me that you will fight for me. I need only to be still. Lord, you know how weary I am. I've been struggling just to keep my head above water, and my strength is running low. I need to stop trying so hard and just let you fight for me. This is very difficult for me to do because my feelings tell me I must keep striving in order to survive. But I know you're working on my behalf, and you are calling me to rest in you. So please, help me to be still and know that you are God. In your invincible name, Jesus. Amen.
To learn more about Benjamin Hall, be sure to check out his new book, Resolute: How We Humans Keep Finding Ways to Beat the Toughest Odds, at your favorite retailer. Stay tuned to Chris Janssen's story after a brief message.
For over 20 years, readers have discovered the joy of spending time in the presence of the Savior with the much-loved daily devotions in Jesus Calling. Now, in the Jesus Calling Commemorative Edition, you'll feel comforted by words of hope and encouragement and be reassured of Jesus' unending love through author Sarah Young's words of gentle guidance that are rooted in Scripture. In this deluxe edition, you'll find samples of Sarah's original handwritten devotionals, 12 new devotions she penned before her passing, letters from Sarah to readers for each month of the year, and a touching tribute from Sarah's daughter. Experience a deeper relationship with Jesus as you savor the presence of the one who understands you perfectly and loves you forever. Find the Jesus Calling Commemorative Edition today at your favorite retailer or get 30% off your purchase at faithgateway.com.
Our next guest is author and life coach Chris Janssen. Chris shares her powerful story of sobriety, revealing how she concealed her addiction in plain sight for years before her faith led her to the path of recovery. Through both successes and setbacks, she has gained deep wisdom, which she now uses to help others find healing.
Hi, my name's Chris Janssen. I am a wife, a mom to 3 adult children, and I'm also an author and a board-certified life coach, and I've been doing that for the last several years. My mission in life is to encourage God's people to know their self-worth, and I do that through writing and coaching. Growing up, I had a wonderful childhood, actually. It was my mom and dad. They're still living, and I have a brother, a younger brother. We're all still very close, and I say that because since we are talking about addiction and alcohol addiction, a lot of people ask me that question. Is it inherited? Is it genetic? I'm not a doctor. I don't know. I just think anybody, regardless of how you grew up, can get caught in the snare of addiction. I realized alcohol was a problem immediately after I tried it for the first time. I was a freshman in high school. We were at a gathering on the side of the road with upperclassmen, and I tried beer. And I was a very perfectionistic child. I was a rigid thinker. I lived in my head. So when I had a sip of alcohol, it was very magical. It was like it just took all of that being in my head, being so focused on things that really weren't serving me, and it just relaxed me. It made me feel okay. It changed my state and made me feel calm. And that's great, but it's not sustainable. And so after I tried alcohol for the first time, I kept drinking socially with friends. I knew it wasn't good for me. I hated the way I felt the next day. I heaped a ton of shame and guilt on myself for it. I had tried probably for 24 years, from the time I first tried it as a freshman in high school until I was 37 years old, to become a non-drinker on my own. But when I was 37, I just knew it had grown to where I knew it was a problem. It did not look like I had a problem. I had 3 babies. I was an athlete. I was really good at these other things in life. So nobody was telling me. And I asked my pastor, a doctor, a therapist, my husband, my good friends, do you think I have a problem? Because I was pretty sure I did. And everybody's answer was like, "Oh, honey, no, you don't need recovery. You don't need that. You don't have a problem." And that was the problem, that I knew in my gut it was going to kill me. I was that housewife at home drinking too much while I was doing the dishes or cleaning up. And I knew I couldn't do it. I also didn't know what to do about it. It was divine intervention. I felt God leading me to look up online what to do for help one night. And I went to a women's meeting the next day. And that's when my recovery started and everything changed for me. Because in that meeting, a woman in the group who knew it was my first time, she said to me, "It's not your fault. It's like an allergy." She said, "You're an alcoholic. It's like an allergy, and you never have to have another drink again." And in that moment, all the shame and guilt flew off my shoulders, and my belief changed from I'm a monster to I'm deserving of recovery and community and sobriety because I'm addicted to alcohol. And then that started a journey of recovery that changed my whole life. Just shy of 14 years, I never took another sip of alcohol again. I worked a program of recovery, and I had friends in recovery, and I stayed close to my sober community. And when it was 2020, we were in quarantine, or, the pandemic had hit. I'd always lived in the same state my whole life, California. We decided to move to Colorado. We were brand new empty nesters. I went and tried to get plugged into a recovery community in my new town, and I couldn't find one right away. And so after 13 and a half years, I started to take that for granted and take it for granted that my recovery program and sobriety was magical. It was life-giving. Like a person who takes a vitamin to feel better, and they feel better, and then they think they don't need the vitamin anymore. That was me. So I did invite alcohol back into my life. And I think that's important to note, because from that story, you can see it wasn't like a low note. I went out on a high note. I wasn't depressed. No big traumatic thing had happened and then I drank. Life was better than it had ever been, and I just thought I could have it all. I thought, well, I just need to do it better or build my tolerance. And that's just such cuckoo thinking. It's so backwards, because the more you work at it with a toxic substance like that, you don't build your tolerance. It's a progressive condition, and it gets worse with age and over time. So it just got worse. And then I really did have an ugly bottom where there were some bad episodes, and the last time I drank, I am very lucky I didn't die. And so I immediately, the day after that, went back to the recovery community, and with fresh eyes, right? It was definitely the place for me. I felt like that was family. I was home, and people in recovery, they are not full of shame. That's a beautiful thing. To me, physical wellness leads to emotional wellness for me. So I run or work out or walk or hike. I stay connected to community, both my recovery community and my church community and my girlfriends, my friends, and prayer every day. My quiet time is really important for me, and that quiet time, and then also the listening time. So my routine is I'll pray, and then I'll go on a run. And during the run, I just let my mind listen. And I keep little voice memos on my phone. And when I hear things that I know are from the Spirit, I put them in there and write them down. Jesus Calling's a beautiful piece of work. It helps us readers to get our prayer life jump-started, really, for the day. I love writing and journaling. And then healthy, good food is life-giving for me. I'm a highly sensitive person and body type, so I'm sure that plays into why I'm terrible at drinking alcohol, but it also plays into that it's really important for me to stay healthy physically in order to stay healthy mentally and emotionally. And so the way I described sobriety as more than abstinence, it's a lifestyle, not an event. I don't believe I'm giving something up by sobriety. I'm gaining something. And what's gained is my life, my memories, my presence with people, my ability to have fun. I love laughing. I would say I'm funny. And that all goes away. If I drink alcohol, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm not fun. I might be for 20 minutes or maybe a few hours. It just was so the opposite of fun, though, afterwards. So I'm not going to lie and say it's not fun when I went out to have a drink, and I probably had some fun nights. It's just miserable, though, over the long run, and it's not sustainable. So when I work with clients, I'm big on leverage and always asking, what are the costs and benefits of these behaviors or thoughts or decisions that we make? And be honest about it. What's the cost of it? What's the cost of not drinking? Okay, well, there might be a few costs with that. But then let's write down the costs of drinking, right? The costs for me are far more of doing the thing. So that's what I like to stay focused on and what I want to help other people stay focused on. God says we have grace. He says we're valuable and we're worthy. And I know for me as a young person, I tried to control that. I didn't understand God's grace because I thought, I'll tell you if I'm what I deserve and what I don't deserve. I'll tell you if I'm worthy or not, right? I felt like everything I did, I had to earn it. And that's the opposite of grace. And so when we live in that mindset of control, we're unable to accept grace, and we're taking control of our own worthiness, and we don't get to do that. We just don't. God has said we're worthy and valuable no matter what.
To learn more about Chris Janssen, visit chrisjanssencoaching.com and be sure to check out her new book, Grace Yourself: How to Show Up for the Sober Life You Want, at your favorite retailer. If you'd like to hear more stories about finding strength during a struggle, check out our interview with Natalie Grant. Next time on the Jesus Calling podcast, we'll hear from Jared Orton, the president of the Savannah Bananas, the viral sensation baseball team taking the world of sports entertainment to a whole new level. Jared shares about the servant focus of the organization and how they're seeking to bring joy to everyone they come in contact with.
We do feel like we are in this position for a reason, hopefully for a very long time, to be the stewards of something that's really special in the earth, and to be able to use this platform and this team, this group of people we work with, and the community that we're in, the people that we serve, the people that we're able to now be around in a way that glorifies God, advances the kingdom, and really shares the love of Christ with people.
Thanks for listening to the Jesus Calling Stories of Faith podcast on the Life Audio Network. Every week, we'll bring you stories from people who share their journeys of faith and how prayer and a relationship with God transformed their lives. Be sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And leave us a review so others can be inspired weekly by these stories of faith. Finally, you can find encouragement, resources, and more on the Jesus Calling website at jesuscalling.com.